Welcome to the Evolution Partners podcast, where I talk with the world's leading thinkers, planners, and doers who are helping to build great companies in their own way. We learn how the work they're doing is creating an impact and get to know a little bit more about them and what makes them tick. This episode is brought to you by Evolution Partners, where we help leaders to confidently build enduring great companies using our proven, structured, strategic planning process that ensures you build and execute the right plan. Check us out at evolutionpartners.com.au. Also, you can check out our books, Made to Thrive, outlining how to be a great CEO, as well as Onboarded, which is about making your new hires more effective faster. My guest today is David Katz, the founder and CEO of Plastic Bank, a global social enterprise that turns plastic waste into currency, empowering people in poverty while preventing ocean pollution. Under David's leadership, Plastic Bank has grown to over 57,000 families across 700 communities in countries like the Philippines, Indonesia, Brazil, Egypt, Thailand, and Cameroon, gathering the equivalent of 8 billion plastic bottles. His model blends social fintech, circular economy thinking, and environmental action, and it's helping businesses worldwide reduce their footprint while uplifting entire communities. Named one of the world's most compassionate entrepreneurs, David has received global awards from the United Nations, Ernst & Young, and the Paris Climate Conference. He's been featured in Time, CNN, Forbes, National Geographic, and many others. David, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on the podcast, Brad. Thank you.
That's my pleasure. It's fantastic. So let's start with the model. We've all heard the intro. What exactly is Plastic Bank, and how did you design it to be a for-profit business that tackles both poverty and plastic pollution at scale?
Well, let's put this into perspective. Now imagine if every piece of plastic packaging that you ever encountered, the bottle, the wrap, whatever it was easily exchangeable for $10. 10 euro, 10 pounds, 10 whatever. Would we still see any flowing into the environment or the ocean? About $10 easily exchangeable, we would realize that no, none would be going into the ocean. It substantiates that it has nothing to do with the plastic and everything to do with us. Now I can look at that, take that paradigm, say, oh, it's an issue of humanity, not of material. And when I look at that and say, hey, you know what? I'm an ocean steward. I grew up on the ocean's edge, and I'm passionate about protecting and serving that has no voice or can't speak for itself. The entire marine habitat and environment is one that's endearing. And I look at that and say, oh, look what's occurring. Why is that occurring? Well, when we look deeper inside of it, we recognize that over 80% of the plastic that's entering the ocean is coming from areas of poverty. It's poverty. Now, when you live in the base of needs and you struggle for everything that you need on a daily basis and set aside additionality like pain medicine or bandages or clean water, diversified food, communications, cooking fuel, and all the rest, although they seem basic to us, almost outside of the reach of the poor and the disadvantaged. Well, what would it be like in the end if you're living in that condition? Do you think about recycling? No. You can't have pain medicine for your children. You do not care about recycling. And you won't get there unless you're in a place where you come out of the base of needs. And that's the work. So imagine us as stores for the poor, where everything in the store are the basics of the needs of humanity available, from school tuition and medical insurance and pain medicine and clean water, all available to be purchased using plastic garbage. What others had considered waste now as money for the world's emerging. Need clean water? Plastic beneath your feet. Need pain medicine? Plastic beneath your feet. Need school tuition for your children so poverty can leave the family? Plastic in the streets. A different view, a paradigm that expresses the inherent value in the material and the given value inside the human, using one problem to solve the other, a beautiful, unique intersection of prosperity for all. That's what we do.
That's very elegant. That's beautiful. So how did you design it to be a for-profit? It's one thing to help people in the way that you've described. It's one thing to help the environment in the way that you described. but it's a whole nother realm. As I was researching this podcast, that was a thing that really struck me. I'm personally quite, as we discussed before we started recording, I'm quite interested in the problem of plastics in the environment. And I think there's a whole conversation we could go into about how it will affect the environment and humans. And so I was interested in that, definitely. But then when I found out that you'd found a way to make this a for-profit model, it became even more interesting. So tell us, how did you design this to be a for-profit?
Well, it had to be. And I would argue, Brad, that we're beyond profit. We're prosperity. We're a for prosperity business, which would imply that all things, all beings, all participants prosper as a result of the transaction. So when our collector community prospers, they gain, they grow. And our brands, the customers, they gain, they grow. When the supply chain gains and grows, when we gain and grow, when we prosper together, when we all win together, it continues to create yet additionality and abundance for all. Because as the brand prospers, it creates even more demand, and even more demand creates even more prosperity for the collector. And with us, even the plastic prospers because it becomes new again. It's because we decided to begin with that end in mind, to build a for prosperity business, which is beyond profit.
And so practically, we've got a person in a place like Thailand, the countries that we've mentioned, it's an expansive network. How does the person who is a resident in this country interact with, practically, Plastic Bank? How does the exchange, etc. work?
There are different methodologies on how we operate. The most effective and successful are our school programmings. So we educate the school on how to educate the child to educate the parent.
Right.
The parent then understands as well stewardship over the environment and other things, but the child continues to communicate that material is money. Plastic is money, and like everyone else in the school, once a week it's returned to the school. The school itself is the Plastic Bank branch.
Okay.
The family, instead of throwing away their plastic weekly, instead of just discarding it or burning it and suffering from the cardiopulmonary disease, they collect it, they retain it, like we do in our homes in the north. Just once a week it goes out there instead of putting it on the curb, because the child's walking to school, they take it to the school with them. And it's weighed, a value is established, transferred to their account. The school becomes the aggregator, and the more plastic that the school collects, the more plastic the more the school makes. So the school often will buy school tuition insurance. So it'll insure the student and the teacher. It'll provide uninterrupted education for the child. In many of the communities we operate in, it's user pay, where the family has to pay for the school. It may and is typically one income household. If something happens to the income earner of the home, often the child is removed from school because they need food. Yeah. Education is a luxury. So instead of that occurring, you collect and you bring plastic to the school, and the insurance is provided for the child so that no matter what, that child will receive an education, so that you have hope that poverty may, in your generation, leave your family, breaking the cycle of poverty. You see, that's a completely different paradigm.
Yeah.
Because what value is the end of poverty in your family? It's worth more than the few dollars that it was. Definitely changes the paradigm of the plastic itself. It's no longer plastic. That is the end of suffering in the generations of my family.
Yeah.
That is a whole different paradigm. And that's the work we do. We change the thinking, Brad, not the material. We change the way we view it. We change ourselves.
That's fascinating. So tell us, how did you begin? So we mentioned off air that you were in the Entrepreneurs Organization. Tell us the story. What were you doing before, or what's been your journey before? What was the spark or the inspiration that started you, and how long has Plastic Bank been going? Maybe just walk us through a little bit about the journey.
We're in our 13th year. It's it emerged in and outside of the business that I had previous to this, which in the year 2000, we began to develop a GPS tracking technology before the ubiquitous iPhone and other technologies that exist today. Back when you had to go to the store to buy like a mapping, GPS mapping. We combined a modem with a receiver, and we would transmit that data into an application that combined location data, engine state, and a few other things to give fleet management efficiency to organizations. Now, we were a subscriber-based business, and I was able to build a business that had recurring revenue. And I got to the point, and I remember the day where no matter what happened, I would be profitable. It was just growth, growth, growth. I had struggled my entire life with all of these goals, writing out every day, and I began to achieve everything, and the Porsche and the Armani and the things and the stuff and the nothingness and the inconsequential things of life. And I remember the day that I found hopelessness, because it wasn't in money that was my life's joy. I remembered what it was like to be missing purpose, and it's a very significant element in how I arrived here. I was lucky enough to discover then that it's not money. And that journey of all of it and growing the company, I became on a very light scale military contractor. We began offering and serving the Canadian military. And it was from there that I was acquired. Now, luckily, at that intersection, through the journey with EO and the experiences and traveling and being open and looking, and the great part about that organization is that when you have question, it's a place to go and seek. And it's such a beautiful mirror. And somehow beautifully, when the student is ready, the teacher arrives. And that came in an event in Turkey where I was enlivened into the knowing and the being of an event called Singularity University, formed to tackle the global grand challenges, those challenges affecting all of humanity. And I attended that, my eyes open, looking for something that might be able to lead me to find a solution for what I knew was already occurring in the oceans, having grown up on the west coast of Canada, witnessing in my teenage years, 40 years ago, the degradation that began. My life and my place and my sense of being and peace has always taken me to the ocean's edge. And wherever I went, I just saw the continuous accumulation of waste. And I knew something would need to be done, and at some point humanity would awaken. Now, as an entrepreneur as well, I recognized that there would be an opportunity in people wanting to share the story that they were going to be a part of the solution and not the pollution.
Yeah.
It was that intersection, knowing that I could invite people to be a part of something bigger than themselves, recognizing that purpose was far more important than shareholder return, that not all companies would participate with us, but the right companies would. Nor did I need all companies, and that I would do what was right and be a voice for those who didn't have a voice for themselves. And here we are.
Thank you for sharing. It makes me think about the moment when, I will butcher your words, when you found yourself without purpose, when you found yourself, you had all the stuff, but you didn't really have the
joy,
the intent behind it, and another Porsche or Armani, to use the names that you kind of used, wouldn't fill that void. It's not the first time I've heard that from seasoned entrepreneurs or people who've been around the block, let's just say. Do you think that there's any way to avoid that? Or do you think that people just need to go on that journey and then get the stuff and then figure that out?
How can you avoid that? I don't know. There's something about the depth of the wisdom, the empathy that arrives with it, that makes you that much more wonderful, beautiful, powerful, and honest in the world. And I don't think it's something that should be avoided. I think it's an additional emotion that can be experienced. I wouldn't suggest staying there, but to experience it and come through it and understand it fully, to surrender self to the greater gift of love and service, and delicious. So I would advocate not to avoid it. I wouldn't avoid it. I wouldn't avoid anything. It's all beautiful.
Yeah, good answer. You've grown Plastic Bank into a multi-country operation.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fascinating and unique, I think, or maybe abnormal or outside of the norm type model.
Yeah.
What were the model decisions early on that made it scalable? I mean, you mentioned that you'd built in the previous business, or you'd worked very hard by the sound of it to build a recurring revenue model. So these things were like, in my experience, I'm never going to do that again, and I'm never going to do that again. So you filter out those things as you get older. So tell us, what were the model decisions early on that made it scalable?
Exponentiality, and Salim Ismail, a super smart guy, a book called Exponential Organizations, happened to be a friend of mine as well, and was the very first person that I was able to communicate this idea to as he was on stage at Singularity University. I'm like, oh my gosh, Salim, I've got this thinking. It struck me as like, and creating an organization that was scalable without the need and the requirement for cash, without the need and a requirement for anything, was really part of that methodology. It's beginning with the end in mind, and building it. And with all of my authenticity, I've built a multinational that is affecting hundreds of thousands of people. We've returned thousands of millions of bottles, like hundreds of thousands of tons of material. And I have no idea how it happened. I don't. I really don't. I swear. It's just occurred. I have no idea. It's amazing. It's remarkable. I use word, and I create a space for people to step into something powerful beyond what they ever thought of themselves. I find people who are subject matter experts, and I create a vision that they then take on as their own. And their very existence of being comes to life. I don't do anything. I don't.
You do have the vision.
Vision, yeah, absolutely. And I can speak of that. And I can speak of resonance and energy, and I can create that space, and I can create the space for people to have that vision be their own. That's even more powerful than following someone else's vision.
Yeah, I heard it said recently that a person who works, I'll say for you, but with you,
Yes.
they will be attracted to you because your vision is bigger than their vision. And that's something that we often don't give enough credit to as entrepreneurs. They subconsciously or consciously, maybe they don't even know it, compelled because your vision is much bigger than they could ever summon, or they could figure out at this moment in time.
I would commit
Yeah.
that it's my vision of them that is even more inspiring. My vision of them, what I see of them, how they are the creator of change in the world, how I see them, believe them, and stand for them, and speak to them from a sense of being that they never saw for themselves. They step into a different version of themselves, one that they was never able to be imagined before. Far more inspiring.
Can you give us an example of that in action?
I don't have job descriptions. There's no job description. That's ridiculous. I have responsibility. And maybe with Artie, who's just remarkable and leads our communications. Artie, your responsibility is to lead the voice of change in the world with all of the compassion, all of the heart, all of the being that is inherently you. Speak that into existence in humanity. Be that in the world. That's what I see of you. How you're going to do that, I don't know. That's the responsibility. Speak the love. Speak the vision.
Thank you. You've created a two-sided platform. Communities that are collecting plastic, as we outlined in the story about the school, and corporates funding the system. What lessons do you think that owner-led companies can take from how you balanced both sides of that market? Because you're really serving two masters in one sense, so there would be a complexity in that.
Yeah, there's lots of complexity everywhere. I think that the greatest lesson I've taken away is only sell to people who want what you've got.
Yeah.
There's a lot there, right? Like, who is it that wants to be renowned for helping change humanity? I mean, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. And so am I ultimately serving all of humanity? I've got more than two masters. So what I'm standing for is a world that is regenerative, a world with prosperity. And so I look for organizations that already have that ethos. And then it becomes very clear, because then they can see themselves, and they can see how with this, it propels that. But there's already an authenticity there. It's beautiful. And then they just become that. I don't even have to sell them anything. They just become it. They've already chosen it in advance. And now I show them how with us, it becomes much clearer, much closer. So it's not selling to everybody. Stop. You're trying to convince someone that's dead inside that they should be alive. No, I'm dead. I've chosen to be. No, aliveness is amazing. I'm dead.
Yeah.
But aliveness is amazing. I don't care. No. Or you find someone that's already alive and say, oh, together we'll be even more alive and the world will be more prosperous together. Let's create prosperity for humanity together. Oh, that's delicious. Now it's a community. It's a renaissance. It's a different thinking that's brought to life. And that's different. And that's I don't know, it's just It's more beautiful. And then you partner together, and then it's like you're advocating together. You advocate for the mission together. So I'm not selling you anything. I'm inviting you into a different way of being. See, just like with the people who choose to work with us, like I'm just offering you a different vision into the different way of being in the world, and then you get to create it in your own unique, wonderful way. And then when we invite our customers, our partners to be with us, it's the same thing. And then how does it come to life? And we partner and we create it together. And then it's an invitation into a different thinking. I mean, it's kind of mystical, honestly. Like I'm talking about it, I would certainly when so many people come to me and say, how'd you do it? And they're looking for like, do this, do that, A, B, C, D, E, F, but it's not that. I mean, I built a wonder. Look what's unfolded. I have no idea how it occurred. I can't give you an A, B, C, D, E. I can give you A, and that is tell everyone and invite everyone. And every time I tell someone, every time I talked about it, every time I began, people would say, what about this? What about that? And I would change. I go, yeah, you're right. Thank you. Great. And then eventually I was able to share from this place of being that people said, yes, that's what needs to come to life in the world. And then it became real for them. And then there it is. Like Cameroon. I don't know. How did we start Cameroon? I don't know. How do we start the Philippines? I don't know. What? I mean, I do, but I don't. Like, I know, but honestly, like, it's not like I ever told anyone what to do.
Yeah.
I invited them into a different way of being, and they began to execute in the way that touched their soul, in a way that they thought to be right, to be true. And I was able to reward that.
And as you're explaining that, I'm thinking about the different components of what the business does. Because there is the collection, but beyond that, there's savings accounts and microloans and
banking.
Gamification, and so this is all within digital currency, if I'm correct. Yeah. So tell us about that, because those things, it sounds like, occurred through ideas that were generated through conversations, and it's just evolved over time. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's a bit of all of it. In my conversation with being an exponential organization, like that's always been the end in mind, to be Plastic Bank. Like when I had the idea that May the 9th, 2013, that it was like, oh, Plastic Bank, of course. And it was banking and financial inclusion and the opportunity to give credit worthiness to the world's emerging, so that we provide zero interest loans to the world's poor. That's the greatest benefit. Set aside school tuition insurance, but if you can solve your own poverty, that's a whole different thing. Because we're dealing with the world's most resourceful people. And so when you give them a mechanism where they can solve their own poverty, because you can't donate the end of poverty. You create the condition where it can solve itself, and that, in the end, like, what? You giving me an opportunity to come out of poverty? I just have to continuously collect material? Great. What? That's all I gotta do? I gotta just collect a certain volume of material weekly, be reliable, invite other people into this, make sure that's high quality material, make sure that I'm growing and gaining more and more material, and then I can borrow for no interest. What? Okay. See, that's an additional exponential idea. And now it's banking and inclusion, credit worthiness, and the opportunity to have small loans, mortgages, other things, so that you can solve your own poverty. Because as you do that and you ascend from the base of the needs, then at some point you have the opportunity to serve others as well. So it perpetuates the solving of poverty. Super cool. So banking was the idea, but it took forever because I was self-funded. I had a few small dollars at the time. I certainly undersold the previous company that I had, but I had a few small dollars. I invested everything into it. Everything and then some, because it took me, I think, something almost like 4.5 years to hit revenue.
Yeah. So
I had to pour every ounce of my life into it. And the travel and learning and figuring out, why aren't people buying it? How am I selling it? What's occurring? What's happening? Why? And how to, all of those things. And I'll come back to that conversation, because you tell people and they give you the feedback, and then you change again, and then it becomes real. Now, it's a little esoteric, but it's the truth of it all, because although people are looking for step by step, I want to give you the idea behind it, the more of the self-evident truth, so that no matter which way or what system or EOS or whatever methodology you want to run your company with, it will emerge faster when you are more powerful in the communication of the vision and are open and vulnerable to listen to what it is that you need to learn and change. And it comes from that speaking vision and being vulnerable enough to not be right. And so powerfully, truthfully, That is the way that I ultimately build a multinational organization that includes banking, financial inclusion, the blockchain, supply chain, returning massive volumes of material back to the circular economy, creating a global brand, being recognized as a thought leader in the space, being one of the original founders in tackling marine debris, being a steward for all of humanity, all while being a wonderful father and dad. I just had a new baby. All of those things. And having a rich, wonderful life. And it's really much easier than we all think.
It begins with a vision.
Yes, it begins with a vision.
Yeah, it's what I take from that.
It begins with vision, but it's more than just vision, Brad. It's speaking and living and being the vision.
Yeah.
So it's the wonderful Gandhi quote, be the change you wish to see in the world. Now, it's not the depth in it. There's a depth in that quote that it's not about acting it. It's not about, because many people say, oh, be the change. Oh, I'll go and I'll recycle or whatever it is. But that's only part of the way. When you be and live in the space where nothing is waste, everything is returned to circularity, all of that, when you be the vision and you speak from the vision, you speak from it, you live in the future, you speak and you be there, that's different. That's how it arises. Now, I can only speak. Let me rephrase it. That's how I had it arise. There may be multiple paths. That's what I did.
Well, you've got to be authentic, right? It's one thing to speak a vision. It's another thing to speak it authentically and to believe it authentically, do it. I think
from the truth, from the being of it.
Yeah.
It must be. It only occurs in the authenticity of the truth, in your knowing of the being of it. Now, it's difficult for many because it doesn't yet exist. It's not yet manifested physically around you. So it may seem somewhat contradictory to people and they may feel shy about it, but that's not the, you speak it, you be it, and then it arises. So of course you must be authentic, because then if you're not being authentic, that's not the creation. The creation comes from the authenticity of its being. Vision is different. It's not speaking what you might think. Vision is being, living from, speaking from that place. Vision. Different.
And so how has your vision changed now compared to maybe not 13 years ago when you started, but once you kind of got momentum, where do you see Plastic Bank going from here?
The vision hasn't changed at all. In the end, I see a world, like if I live into the future and I recognize it in 1,000 years, if humanity is still to be here, big if, and I don't want to dismiss that. I'm not cavalier with that. Will humanity still be here in 1,000 years? I don't know. I think our extinction is inevitable. It's just a matter of when. Like all other species, we're one of 10 billion species that has existed. Almost all, except the odd crocodile, have been extinct. So there's that conversation, but I recognize that it's not the most strong or powerful that survive, it's the ones most apt to change that survive. And I believe that humans have an aptitude to change. So I'm not sure if it's in the house favor or not, but if humanity is to survive in 1,000 years, at some point along the way, because in 1,000 years, if we're still here, we'll be thriving to some element. And if we're thriving, at some point along that journey, we stop putting things on the curb and taking them to the hole in the ground. All things become circular. All of it. There is no waste if we're thriving. And I can look at that and go, that's fair to say. Everything is returned to circularity, and that's what I began. That's what I'm living into. That's the vision. That's where I live.
In the arc of humanity, 1,000 years is not really that long. To say, let's hope that we're still here in 1,000 years. So it may sound like a long time. I find it fascinating that some people struggle to think in a time frame of 100 years or 200 years. This is the way that we've got the history. We can look backward. We should be able to maybe not understand what it will be like in the future, but certainly appreciate that this is coming and we will live with our decisions. Yeah. So I guess the question that I'm left with is plastic appears to be worthless from a pure monetary perspective to many people. Disposed, as you said, the hole in the ground, the curbside pickup in a Western sense. How did you create something of value? Was it the fact that you'd put the other components together? It is the sum of the parts that creates the entire value. Is that a correct assumption, or what can you tell us about creating this value?
Well, I think it's a yes and. And when we look at a bottle of water that you may be paying $2 for from the store shelf, the plastic bottle itself, way more than the water that's in it. But you're taught that the bottle was the waste. So it already has inherent value inside of it. We've just been habituated, marketed, that it's worthless. When I had the idea that May of 2013, it was during a 3D printing seminar, and they exhibited this brown belt, fashion belt, 3D printed, and it looked like a 70s belt. It was really fascinating and brown. It was like, oh, interesting. This was Avi Reichenthal. He was the CEO of 3D Systems, the first publicly traded 3D printing company. He was the one providing the seminar, a world authority. And he was showing this belt, and I'm like, oh, fascinating. That was made from a single strand of plastic using computer-aided manufacturing. And I was like, what? Like, it's a single strand of plastic. And I said, Avi, well, how much does the belt sell for? He says, $80. No, well, what was the material cost? $10. And I was like, hold on a second. The only thing that substantiated $70 additional of value was its shape. It wasn't the plastic, it was the shape. Hold on a second. See, it's not the plastic bottle I need to change, it's the way I view the bottle that changes. It has nothing to do with the plastic. It's what I assign it. So then it became, yes, a summation of the parts, the assigning of value, of social purpose, of goodness, of branding, of story, of supply chain, of all kinds of things that help establish a profound value on top of the material itself. You see, I began to assign and give it the value. I lived into the vision that material is so valuable it should never be wasted. Why would you ever do that? It's diamonds and gold. I didn't have to change the plastic itself.
But you did need to set up a setup or connect with, I should say, people who will take that plastic, people who will process it.
Absolutely. Processors, the supply chain, the shipping, logistics, aggregators, the blockchain itself, being able to provide banking, the training, all of those things, providing a space. We use a utility token, a question you asked before, so that every transaction is authenticated. Every transaction certainly has its own unique identifier. Every penny has its own unique identifier. Certainly in country, we already have, a fiat-backed banking in country as well, US dollar-backed. So every time a transaction occurs, it's already deposited from one bank. So there's been a lot that we've had to do to go through that whole process. And we do it in a way where we can be banking for the unbanked, but not be a bank. So we don't use other people's money. We use our own money so that there's much less or no regulation over what we do. It's still banking, but I tended up to break banking so that we could actually bank people who need it the most. So there's a lot that we've had to do in all of that process. Set aside the aggregator itself, providing logistics, local training, all those things, ensuring and algorithms that keep children from being employed, being able to look for aberration, all those things. There's lots going on in there as well. And then local logistics between aggregator and processor. And that processor as well, we've had to spend a lot of time with. So the processor themselves, we needed to ensure that they adopted a North American health and safety standard. We have to go in and audit regularly. Are people wearing closed-toed shoes? They have Iowa? Do they have fire extinguishers? What's that like? How might it be? So that we can authenticate the most ethical supply chain of material in the world, so that customers are risk-free, because really our role is to save our companies harmless, so that they're never accused of greenwashing, because it's not, because it's authentic and powerful and beautiful. They can never be accused of using children, because they don't. They can never be accused of taking unskilled labor and abusing them, because they don't. We provide value in every step. We make it so safe for people. And I had to go through all of those things, and all of that arrived from having people say, yeah, we can't do it because of this. Yeah, but this. Yeah, but that. Oh, so if we could do those things, great. Okay, we'll do that. Oh, we'll do that. Great.
The entrepreneur's mindset, we just keep doing it, right? We
just keep doing it. Figure it out. Keep going. Keep going. It's too big. See, I live into the vision. The vision draws me as well. I speak from the vision, but that vision, I don't know. It arrived in this moment that plastic is money, like it was loud and visceral, real when I had the idea. Let me rephrase it. It was real when the idea arrived. because I didn't create it. I just saw something. It's accepted it. I received it. And I agreed, and I made an agreement with self that I didn't need to be the person, but I could just slowly become the person who could figure this out or execute it or have it come to life in the world. I heard something. It was a very quiet voice that said, just choose to become this. I'm like, okay. And I chose it. There was nothing I invented. That's why I'm humble enough to agree that I didn't invent anything. I just saw a different way of thinking, and I share a different way of thinking with people until it arrives in the world. And it's esoteric, and it's not the answer most people are looking for, because they're looking for something pragmatic, practical. But this journey was not. This journey was different.
I think it's cool. As you're speaking, I imagine a photograph of a before and after. Because if I think about some of the poorer countries that have been mentioned, plastic, many of our listeners have been to these places. You can see plastic litter everywhere. And if litter or plastic bottles in this sense becomes a currency, they're not going to be there littering everything. So it must be remarkable for you to go to these places and to see that impact. It must be so rewarding for your soul.
Here's the challenge. And a part of our challenge, because of course there's the marketing, the communication, living that vision into life, being, what is that? How do you communicate that? Oh, there's 100 other things that we look at. But it's not like, like you can go out and like the ocean cleanup, like they'll send out a ship for tens of millions of dollars, and they'll, use more fuel, more carbon to capture the carbon that they're collecting. They'll take weeks to do what we collect in an hour. And yet you can show the before and after, and the people are like, oh, look at that. That was all fished out of the ocean. Okay, I've got it. That's cool and inspiring and important as well. But when I look at one of our collectors, and they've had a shift where in 1 minute, in one moment, they no longer see themselves as being impoverished or hopeless. And they go from hopeless to hopeful. When you look at that person, they look exactly the same. It's kind of hard to show the before and after.
So it's more about the individual than the scenery.
This is a people business, man. This is what we do, is people. Because it's the people that make the change. It's the people. This is an issue of humanity. Because the poverty and the plastic that's entering the ocean is coming from that mindset. The impoverished mindset that can only see that very next moment. Poverty and time are time frame are connected. So when you're a poverty mindset, you have a very, very short time perspective. Like the next meal, the next pain, the next thing now. Like drug addicts, alcoholics, they think of the next hit, stuff like that. You get the true wealthy, they think in multi-generation, they have a long time perspective. And so when you're littering and can't think of recycling, you're living in a very short time perspective. So we've got to be able to change the time perspective of the individual.
That's at the center, right? That's
at the center of it.
Yeah.
That's at the center of all of our problems in humanity.
Yeah.
Because even people who are making money that are focused on profit have a poverty mindset. I don't have enough. I need more. Different bag, different car, different fashion, more. It's the poverty mindset is different than the condition of being impoverished or living in poverty.
Brilliant. That is a great point for us to begin to transition perhaps into the final part of today's conversation. So at the moment I'm writing a book. Working title is Bigger Isn't Better, Better is Better. And so it prompts me to ask you this question. What do you think a better business looks like for you and most of the people that you deal with?
Well, I think it's like, listen, better is better. Prosperity, it's the prosperity effect. When we build prosperity for all, there's even more for us. It's regenerative, restorative. It's remarkable. And when you're at the center of creating prosperity for all, I use an example of one of our customers out of the UK. They're called Currency, because they are a currency exchange. They're an FX exchange through a credit card service. So they've got hundreds of thousands of new card holders in the UK, and it's predominantly for people who travel or do credit card purchases in foreign countries. So they give a reduced rate in the currency exchange. So they save some money, but powerfully, and one of the reasons why they're having so many subscribers, now it's called Currency, but it ends with SEA, currency. So these are people who are traveling selling, and every time they spend money on their credit card, every time they use that credit card, in partnership, we extract material from the environment. So you buy something and plastic bottles are taken from the environment. And that ultimately builds prosperity for someone around the world. It makes the ocean better. It makes the person who collected it better. It created maybe schooling and education. Now, when someone used that credit card, they saved money as well. They benefited. The plastic bank benefited. The company who founded the organization benefited. Everyone won. It's a prosperity mindset. That's an example.
Yeah. But you can't do that with a poverty mindset.
You can't do that with a poverty mindset, because the poverty mindset is how much can I keep from everybody else, as opposed to how much can I give to everyone else so I benefit even more from that little bit extra that everybody gets. Prosperity. And then you've got all the purpose and beauty and love, and everyone's connected and committed, because through you, I gain prosperity myself. Of course I'm connected to you. Of course I want you to win, because my prosperity is your prosperity. Your prosperity is my prosperity. Our prosperity is their prosperity. It's amazing. That's available. That is prosperity. That is profit. That's profit.
It's not where I thought the conversation would take us, but I do love it. It's the understanding the problems, the challenges with a poverty mindset. What's a book that you would recommend for our audience?
The most important, relevant, critical book of my life is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Dr. Stephen Covey, period. That's all. It's a principle-centered life. And if you'd like to understand the way we operate, it's in The 7 Habits. Everything that we do is based on the principles of the 7 Habits, period.
Yeah, it's. I've read it many times. It's remarkable.
Many times, right.
And if you haven't read it in a long time, read
it again. There's always something new.
Yeah, there is. It's a fantastic book. Thank you.
Yeah.
How can people learn more about you and your business and your efforts?
Plasticbank.com, critically important. And I'm going to speak from the mission because it requires you. We're ultimately a global bottle deposit program funded by the world's most progressive people. So go to plasticbank.com, just enroll, either follow us, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Show your movement, show your commitment. Be a part of something. Be a part of a mission, a vision, a tribe. Put your hand up and say, yes, I believe we can all do better together, because nobody else is coming to save us. There's no government, no big business, nobody is coming. The only people that are left are us. We need to gather together to make the change, to be that unit that makes significant change in humanity. That's what we're up to. So go and subscribe, enroll, be a part, put your hand up and say yes to a world of prosperity, a regenerative world. We'll gather together for prosperity. That's what you need to do. And then behind it, recognize that every time you buy something, you vote. If you buy something that degrades humanity, if you buy something that pollutes, if you buy something that's overpackaged, if you buy something that's unhealthy, that's what will be made. You are voting for it. You are saying, yes, make more of that. Be aware, be conscious. Just do that.
Thank you. What haven't we discussed that you wanted to discuss today?
Well, I don't know. It's all possible. Like, nothing that we're doing is against the laws of physics. Nothing that we need to do for all of humanity is against the laws of physics. We just have to change the thinking. It's the Einstein quote. The thinking that got you into the problem can't be that. It's got to be a different thinking to get you out of the problem than got you in the problem. That's the same with this plastic bank. It's different thinking. The thinking that was, oh, it's materials, it's easy, it's discardable. Oh, change the thinking, because that thinking is not going to get you out of the problem. Change your thinking, change your life. Choose what it is. Like the depth in that conversation. It's not change your thinking, it's be willful with the thinking. Choose what the thinking is. Choose what it is. That's the idea. Choose that thinking, and then the world will exist around it. It's be the change. Choose again.
Thank you. Well, David, this brings us to the end of our conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today. It's been, as I kind of anticipated, a very unique, enlightening conversation, and just to get an idea into, as I said at the beginning, what makes you tick and the work that you're doing has been a joy for me. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you so much. And to everyone who's listening, thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I did. If you'd be kind enough to leave a review for the podcast, that'd be really helpful to other like-minded entrepreneurs, and then we can grow our community. If you want to find out more about our guests, head over to evolutionpartners.com.au/podcast, where you can find show notes and other additional reading. Hope to see you back next week. Until then, keep thriving.